Many people will think that going to the gym for 30 minutes 3 times a week is a good idea. Plus it'll help them lose some weight. They read it in the newspaper, they heard it on TV. Actually, that kind of approach in patients with chronic inflammatory response syndrome is almost doomed to failure. Perhaps you've heard of the push-crash phenomenon where people with chronic illnesses might have a good day, they feel a little bit better than what they normally do, and they try to do a little bit more. So as they go through this extra activity, they know what's going to happen the following day. They're going to feel terrible, and it'll take up to 2 to 3 days to recover to getting back to what they were even before they had this surge of a little bit of energy. The reason for the push crash, and by the way, the CDC will call that post-exertional malaise. I call it delayed recovery from normal activity. But the reason this happens is that the blood supply to capillary beds, especially in muscles, is compromised by the inflammatory response. This capillary hypoperfusion results in reduced delivery of oxygen to muscle beds, and our mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell that will give us 38 molecules of ATP, consider $38 worth of energy, now are starving for oxygen. There's nothing wrong with them, they're just not being fueled. And without oxygen, we will only get 2 ATP molecules from that same bit of sugar. Now that sugar is stored in a storage compound called glycogen, and every cell only has a little bit of glycogen. If the glycogen is being wasted, and 5% efficiency is wasting, what happens is the glycogen reserves are burned quickly. Since you're having an interest in doing something that day, you push yourself even though you're burning up glycogen, and what happens now is your body will reach for other sources of fuel. Be nice if fat stores could be burned, but with high leptin and weight problems and lack of adiponectin, fat becomes inaccessible. What does the body do? It reaches for protein. Protein is broken down into amino acids like alanine and glutamine that can be quickly converted to sugar. So that when you had good advice from your neighbor who said, eat less and exercise more, all you did in an effort to feel better is to waste more body protein, accumulate more fat, and feel worse.
Well, let's talk to one, Dr. Asad Khan. You've been suffering from long COVID. Just tell us about, well, first of all, the symptoms that you've had, but then also the treatment you've been getting.
Certainly, thank you very much. So I acquired the illness on a respiratory COVID ward in November 2020. I developed unbearable skin rashes, memory loss, inflammation around the heart, bladder incontinence, and a disabling condition called POTS, which made it impossible to sit or stand due to nausea and dizziness. And by August, I was losing weight. I was lying in a darkened room with blindfolds and earplugs, and I honestly didn't care if I fell asleep and never woke up again. And I've had to be my own doctor, researcher, and advocate. And while some clinicians have empathized and believed, others have suggested that it would just get better with time, or it was psychological, or that they were waiting for research and they couldn't do anything in the interim. And despite my knowledge and my access, it's been a nightmare to get the right care. I can only imagine what it must be like for the average person. And as for the treatment, it's quite simple. It's similar to dialysis. Blood is taken out of one arm, it's run through a machine which cleans it of blood clots, and it's returned to the other arm. I've had 7 cycles of this treatment so far. My blood was so full of clot material that it blocked the machine on 4 occasions. They've pulled multiple clots out of my arm veins, and what is really interesting is that all of the usual clotting blood tests, like D-dimer and fibrinogen, were normal in my case.
So how are you feeling now?
Well, I arrived in Germany in a wheelchair, and I nearly fainted in the clinic waiting room. But now after 7 treatments, I can walk short distances, I can look at a computer screen, I can read scientific texts again, I can eat foods I had become intolerant to, and thankfully the nausea's gone. I still have more treatments to go, but I do feel like things are moving in the right direction. and it seems like I finally got a chance of getting my life back again.
If I look around at this audience today, all the people standing up, and I'm a defense expert in mold litigation, I'm gonna say, well, you look pretty good. You can't be sick. You're smiling. You got color in your cheeks. Got nice hair. You can't be sick. But they are. And you got 25 health symptoms. You wake up tired, you ache, got muscle cramps, you're weak, you got headaches, your eyes are sensitive to bright light, you're short of breath when you go up 5 or 6 steps, you cough, get sinus congestion, abdominal pain, secretory diarrhea, joint pain, morning stiffness lasts more than 15 minutes. And how about your cognitive issues? How's your brain working? Trouble concentrating? How about your recent memory? And the doctor is listening to this, and you can see very quickly the eyes start glazing over. Are things all right at home? Is your husband drinking too much, or you're drinking too much? And how about work? I mean, you got a bad job evaluation the first time in 5 years. I mean, are you stressed? And then the best one is, oh, I've never heard of the illness causing these symptoms. Well, it's all published. It's all peer-reviewed. All you got to do is read. Trying to tell these people that 50% of the houses in the U.S., Bruce knows, 50% of the houses and buildings, according to NIOSH, are moldy. And you take someone with Lyme disease who's been treated for antibiotics, and he's still sick, why don't you start looking at the inflammatory issues that Lyme leaves behind? Why don't you look to see how the host is changed by an antecedent factor? And what are some of those factors? They all change host immune response. Lyme's just one. Talked to a beautiful lady this morning. She'd been sick for 21 years and counting. And Lyme and all this stuff. And it wasn't until recently that someone said, maybe my home is a problem. And in fact, if you've got Lyme disease, what protection do you have from exposure to inflammagens and toxins in a home? None. What if you got both? And if all you do is use one approach, antibiotics and antibiotics, antibiotics, what's that do for inflammation? I think my Spanish is right here, nada. My left hand, my right hand. Left hand is acquired immune responses, antibodies, allergy, immune globulin E. Right hand is innate immune problems, and this system is ideally designed to help us respond to foreign invaders. We call them antigens, and they're found in the environment, and the antigen is detected by structures called receptors. Think of an antigen as a lock or as a key, and a receptor as a lock. Here is this key floating around you just breathed in. And by the way, one thing, Bruce, you need to know is that spores are less than 0.2% of the problem indoors. Fragments of spores, other particulates, huge importance. And if someone's talking to you about spores only, they don't have a clue what 99.8% of the problem is for human health. But these particulates, they're small. They're detected. And that detection sets off this recruitment device that says to our body, we're being attacked. It's like the sentry around the military base. And you get 50 guys, with hoods and handkerchiefs and machine guns sneaking up on the fence. And one sentry says, there's 50 people on the other side. Is it the sentry's job to take out all 50? Or does he set off the alarm that gets multiplied by 10 more guys and 10 more guys each, and 10 more guys each? So now 1,000 respond to the 50. That's what you're supposed to do. And that's what innate immune mechanisms do. They amplify the host response to bring together the functions that let antigen-presenting cells engulf this receptor antigen complex, bring it inside the cell, stick on an immune recognition molecule called HLA, very important, process this whole mixture, and present it to a T cell, which presents it to a B cell that makes an antibody. Antigen detection, antibody production. The antibody is specific for the antigen and wipes it out perfectly. Think about it. If you've got the innate immune mechanism and it recognizes there's a dog in the front yard, the innate immune mechanism says dog, front yard. And the antibody says that is a three-legged schnauzer with a half-ripped ear. If you don't have clearance of antigen, what will happen to your poor innate immune receptors that detect antigen? They say, we're being attacked still, send out some more inflammatory markers. And this whole system starts deteriorating because you have unopposed activation of all these inflammatory mechanisms that should be making antibodies that don't. So unopposed inflammatory problems in the setting of particular HLA or innate immune correction, these are the immune response cells, will lead to a problem where finally you lose regulation of inflammation.